going to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Sunday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. And I hope everybody's had a wonderful weekend. Tonight we're going to talk some college football. If you have any thoughts on what happened Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday in the world of college football, go ahead and let me know down in the comment section. Good evening, Keveron, and go Tigers, as always. And I'm doing fantastic, Marcus. Hopefully you are as well. But, you know, we always talk about every year come mid-October, people start freaking out about what are we going to do with all these teams that are undefeated. And then next thing you know, come mid-November, we have 2 or 3 left. And sure enough, after yesterday, we're down to 3 undefeated teams. And that's it. And of course, if 2 of those keep winning, they're going to play each other. So the maximum we can have is 2. More than likely, we won't have 2. But that's what I always say when I get on here and do my preseason predictions. You know, I do about 1 a week from April up through August. Every once in a while, 2 a week. Usually just 1 a week. And I always say that no matter how good I think somebody is, I'm never going to pick a team to go undefeated because it's just so hard to do. And to me, I don't care who you're a fan of. When a season starts and you expect your team to go undefeated, 99% of the time, you're going to be let down because you are setting yourself up for disappointment when you expect something. That's just not going to happen. Hey there, Fasal. Glad to have you here. And if I mispronounced your name, I apologize. But going back to Friday night, USC beat Northwestern 38-17. I think Lincoln Riley, unless the bottom falls out and they lose their last couple of games, I think he's done enough this year to keep his job. According to some people, he was on the hot seat when the year started. But unless they just lose out, I think he'll be back next year. Hey there, Gareth. Glad to have you here. Houston beat Central Florida 30-27. And also Friday night, Tulane beat Memphis 38-32. That game was all green wave until the fourth quarter. And Memphis tried to make a comeback, but it was too little, too late. So Tulane defeats them. So now in the American Conference, you have 3 or 4 teams right there at the top. And that conference actually has some pretty doggone good football teams. Tulane is good. Memphis is good. South Florida is pretty good. North Texas is good. Navy is good. It doesn't get talked about because it's not a, Power 4 conference, but there's some good football teams in the American Conference. Hey there, Nightmare. Glad to have you here. Ohio State continues to win and just about destroy everybody because their defense is playing so good. They beat Purdue 34-10. Somebody asked me at work this past week if I had to make a prediction right now, who wins the whole thing. I said Ohio State. I don't like them, but I'm a realist. And when nobody can score on you, you're not going to lose. Now, I don't have the old adage, defense wins championships. To me, that's stupid because I've seen too many times where teams have a top 10 defense, but they suck because they can't score. I don't care how good your defense is. If you can't score, then your defense giving up 10 points a game means nothing because you can't score 10 points a game. But Ohio State has an average offense. But when you've got a, probably I would guess, top 2 or 3 ranked scoring defense, if you can score 20 a game, you're not losing. And I agree with you, Marcus. I think for the most part, most people know that every year you're going to have 5 or 6 teams in the playoffs that go every year, and nothing's going to change that. There are some teams that can go 7-5, and they're going to be in the playoffs because of their name, their location, their tradition, whatever the case may be. So every year when the year starts, there's 5 or 6 teams that you know are going to be in the playoffs every year. But it's always the other 6 or 7 spots that could be wild cards. But for the most part, every year Ohio State is in the playoffs. Unless Oregon has a terrible year, they're in the playoffs. Georgia every year is in the playoffs. Alabama every year is in the playoffs. The number 2 team every year in the Big Ten is in the playoffs. Hey there, Myra. Glad to have you here. So every year there's 5 or 6 spots that you can pencil in August that are taken. It's always the other half that could be up in the air. Indiana finally has a close win, but they win. Nevertheless, they beat Penn State 27-24. And hey there, I'm going to hope that's pronounced Sanj. If I said it wrong, I apologize. But Myra and Sanj, I think it's the first time I've seen y'all's names in the comment section. If it is y'all's first time being here, whatever reason made y'all stop by the channel tonight, thank you. If it is your first time being here, feel free to give the video a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. Texas A&M defeats Missouri 38-17. Alabama wins an ugly game over LSU 20-9. And one of the things that's baffled me the most this year in college football, and there's been a lot that's baffled me. This is a year that nobody could have projected, but probably at the top of my list would be what's happened to LSU's offense. Last year it was one of the best in the country, but the problem last year was your defense was terrible. So, you had an average season because your defense was awful. And this year, you brought back the running back you had, and you brought back the quarterback you had, who was a Heisman finalist last year, and a lot of people thought he'd be at the top of that list this year. And LSU has said all year long that he's healthy and he's fine. But if he is, why does your offense going from scoring 45 points a game last year to this year, you're lucky to get 20? What happened? That's probably been the most baffling thing to me this year in college football, is what happened to LSU's defense and what happened to Nussmeier. If he's not healthy, especially now that your season's pretty much toast, why are you playing him? If he is healthy, what in the world happened to him? Hey there, Alfonso. Glad to have you here. Georgia defeats Mississippi State 41-21. And Alfonso, lucky for you, this is not a Tennessee channel, and I'm not a Tennessee fan, but apparently you're not either. But nevertheless, glad to have you here. Texas Tech dominates BYU 29-7. The funny thing about Texas Tech is people always pick on the Big 12 for not having defense, which is not true, but everybody says that. Oh, Big 12 don't play defense. This year, Texas Tech probably has the best defensive line in the country. If they're not the best, they're second or third. So Texas Tech has a really, really good defense. And that game was number 7, BYU, and number 8, Texas Tech. But if you watched it, you'd have never guessed it was 7-8 because Texas Tech dominated that game. I don't think they will, Alfonso. I could be wrong, but I don't think they will. The Steelers started out pretty good, but the last couple of weeks, they've kind of struggled. Their defense is struggling right now, so I don't think they will win tonight, but I could be wrong. You never know. In an upset in overtime, California defeats Louisville 29-26, and California has that quarterback that has the longest name in the history of mankind. But they're 6-4 this year, and the last few years they've been average at best. And this was a year they were supposed to be a 4-5 win team, and they may end up winning 8 or 9 games. That quarterback they got is really good. And I hate it because nobody can say his name. He's just Cal's quarterback. But the dude is really, really good. Oregon defeats Iowa 18-16. Good evening, Eddie. Glad to have you back. We're discussing some college football, so glad to have you here. Eddie, Iowa almost pulled out the upset in that game. Notre Dame all over Navy 49-10. Wake Forest defeats Virginia 16-9. Now, back before the season started, I said, Wake Forest was a 7-win team, and most people had them picked either last or dead last in the ACC. And I said, they're a 7-win team because their head coach wins everywhere he goes. I don't care who he's coaching. I don't care who the quarterback is. None of that matters. If you've got that guy as your head coach, you're going to win. And I may have been wrong on them in a bad way for them because they've almost got 7 wins already, and they've got a couple of more games on their schedule that they should win. They may end up winning 8 or 9 games, but I think 7-5 would still be a success, as bad as they've been the last couple of years. And their quarterback was Robbie Ashford, who's played for 75 teams and never been any good. But this year, he's still not putting up great numbers, but they're winning, and that's all that matters. Another overtime game. Vanderbilt beats Auburn 45-38. Hey there, Jessa. Glad to have you here. Marcus, I do think they make the playoffs because I think Georgia Tech wins the ACC. I could be wrong. They're a one-man team. They're all about Haynes King. Everybody knows that, but they make it work. So I do think they'll win the ACC and make the playoffs. And I think I saw that the 38 points Auburn scored is the most points Vanderbilt has ever given up in a game they won. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, but I believe I read that stat somewhere. Hey there, Haywood. Glad to have you back. And yeah, I mentioned Indiana earlier. They finally had their first, what you call, struggle win of the year, and it looked like they were going to lose. But it's so hard to go undefeated, and it's so hard to beat everybody by 40 points. So you expect a close win somewhere, and they got that yesterday. And as long as they keep winning, they can win every game they have left by 3 points, and they're going to be in the playoffs. Miami beats Syracuse 38-10. Wisconsin snaps their 6-game losing streak by defeating Washington 13-10. SMU defeats Boston College 45-13. West Virginia defeats Colorado 29-22. Now, West Virginia finally went with their backup quarterback, who's a freshman, a couple of weeks ago, and they look completely different with him under center. So they may end up coming back and almost either going to a bowl game or finishing 6-6 when it looked like they were going to be lucky to win 3 games. Clemson defeats Florida State 24-10. Army defeats Temple 14-13. UConn beats Duke 37-34. And honestly, with all these coaching vacancies, I'm surprised that you don't hear Jim Mora Jr.'s name mentioned more at these programs, as good as he's done at UConn. Hey there, Batu. Glad to have you here. But honestly, I think Jim Mora Jr. is just like Hugh Freeze, just like Butch Jones. I think if he stays at a program like UConn, he's fine. But I think if he was to leave and go to a Power 4 school, he'd be a failure. He's coached before, couldn't cut it. Coached NFL, couldn't cut it. But I think he's perfectly fine where he is at UConn. North Carolina beats Stanford 20-15. I got to give North Carolina their props because earlier in the season, right after Clemson beat them, I thought they were going to go 2-10 or 3-9. I mean, they looked absolutely awful. But now they've won the last 2 weeks and look like a whole different football team. So I don't know if they'll come back and get to 6 wins, but if not, they'll get close. But they're not the same team now they were in late September, early October. So we got to give Bill Belichick credit that that team was that bad, and he somehow stuck with it and made the team believe what he's saying, because they have done a complete 360 in the last few weeks. I don't think he will either, Haywood, and I'm glad you brought that up because I've talked about him before. Matter of fact, earlier in the week I brought him up. I've never understood the love for Lane Kiffin. Now I know that he's one of those guys that catches your attention from what he says in interviews and what he sends out on the Twitter world and things like that. But as far as head coaching, yeah, everywhere he's been, he's turned the program around when given time. He coached Tennessee 1 year, so can't count that. And then USC fired him, I think, in year 3. Can't count that. But at every program he's went to and had time, he's turned the program around and started winning with them. But as long as he's coached, he's never won a conference championship. And he's never made the playoffs. So he's never won anything meaningful, but yet everybody loves him. And I don't know why. He might be the greatest coach in the world, but so far he's proven that he can turn you around. But once he gets there, what can he do? And for some reason, everybody loves him. I don't know why. It's kind of like Matt Rule at Nebraska. If you look at Matt Rule's track record, he's winless at Nebraska against top 10, top 15 teams. But in his career, he's like 4-23, I believe, something like that, against ranked teams. So, yeah, he turns programs around, but I don't care what team you coach. You're going to play 3 or 4 ranked teams every year. And, yeah, if you're a 4 or 5 win team, getting to 8 wins is good, but then no fan base is satisfied with 8 wins. Once you get to 8 wins, you want 9. Once you get to 9, you want 10. That's just how fans are. You're not ever satisfied 8-4 every year. It's just not going to happen. But if you're Matt Rule and you can't beat a ranked team and you're going to play 3 or 4 every year, then 8-4, 9-3 is the best you're going to do until you beat a ranked team. But yet everybody wants Matt Rule. Why? All Matt Rule has proven is that he can turn a losing team around, but then once he turns you around, he hasn't yet shown he can get beyond that, but everybody wants him, and I don't know why. Arizona beat Kansas 24-20. Iowa State defeats TCU 20-17. And a shocker, not the win, but the score, was Kentucky beat Florida 38-7. First of all, Florida looks like one of the worst offenses in the country all of a sudden. Second of all, if you're Kentucky, you kind of wonder, why didn't you go to Cutter Bowley earlier? Because Zach Calzada has played at 75 different colleges, and he sucked everywhere he's been. And for whatever reason, Kentucky still decided to play him. And guess what? Just like every other school, he sucked. Well, after their season is in the toilet, down the drain, they decided to bench him and play Cutter Bowley, and they're a completely different football team. Had they started the season with Cutter Bowley, they might have a couple more wins by now. But they've probably won enough games now to save Mark Stoops' job, because now he'll have the excuse, hey, we played the wrong quarterback, which that should still fall on him. He's the coach. He should know Calzada sucks. Everybody knows he sucks. He sucks everywhere he plays, but he could use that excuse now. Hey, look what we done once we played Cutter Bowley. So he probably won enough game to save his job, but I know Cutter Bowley's a freshman, but Zach Calzada sucks. If you've been in college 10 years and you've sucked the whole time, you're not going to all of a sudden not suck this year. And Nebraska beats UCLA 28-21. Now, I know I've mentioned on here many times that, I'm not a fan of Dylan Raiola. I don't get the love behind Dylan Raiola. To me, he's got a pedestrian arm. He's an average runner with an average arm, makes bad decisions, poor throws. He's not a team leader. There's nothing about Raiola that stands out to me. Nothing. I think he's a little overweight. He's slow. I mean, he's just pedestrian in every sense of the word at quarterback. And he got hurt. He's out for the year. And, of course, like every team that loses their quarterback, Nebraska struggled the first game and a half without him. But I think in the long run, they're better off without him. And I think if they're smart, if Dylan wants to come back next year and Matt Rule's the coach, I think he goes to Dylan and says, Dylan, I think you're better off going somewhere else because he's just not good. There's nothing about Raiola that stands out to me. Nothing at all. I've never been impressed with him. And the more he plays, the less impressed I get with him. But any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What did Dr. Seuss's mother do for a living? She was a massage therapist, or masseuse, if you will. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.